No other roleplay game has combat quite like Dragons Dogma, where you can cling onto a griffin as it flees from combat and takes me across the map with it. Dragons Dogma 2 is just around the corner, and I don't think many people truly understand how many unique features this open world roleplay game has, because if they did, they would be a lot more excited for the second game in the series. You see, the first Dragons Dogma, when it came out over 10 years ago, was an underappreciated gem. Critics and reviewers alike didn't really appreciate it, but yet this game still has a cult-like following behind it. And the reason why is it had a unique blend of systems and mechanics that today no other game has copied or done anything like. If you're a fan of challenging action combat reminiscent of Dark Souls and the adventure that an open world game like Skyrim gives you, Dragons Dogma had you covered. But it wasn't just the swinging swords and casting spells that made this game great. They had a monster mounting feature where you would actually climb up on enemies and attack their weak points while they were trying to shake you off, or even fly away as you are holding on for dear life. But one of the most unique features was the pawn system. Pawns were AI-controlled companions that learned and grew alongside you, helping you solve puzzles, locate objectives, and even find enemy weak spots and direct you in the heat of battle. There was even a multiplayer component to them where you could share your pawns with other players. So while you were offline, your pawn would actually come back from an adventure with another player, where they'd come up against different enemies, quests, and puzzles that you hadn't reached yet, and then they'd give you advice based on their new experiences of how to deal with it. So you'd end up with a 4-man Dungeons and Dragons like party going on these adventures where each character has different levels of experience to assist the party with. It had a day-night cycle that reduced your vision to literally nothing. You couldn't see 5 feet in front of you, but you could hear things in the darkness. And I remember the first time I played this game, I was scared of adventuring at nighttime, and no other game had made me feel this way. But suddenly the light of your lanterns and the spells you're using become crucial to the gameplay, and it forced you to prepare for each adventure, play carefully, and just plan trips between the different towns where you'd need to stock up on supplies. Dragons Dogma 1 was a wild ride, and I loved every minute of it. But now, fast forward to today, and we've got Dragon Dogmas 2 just around the corner. I believe the leaked release date is March 22nd in 2024, so it's not far away at all. And the sequel builds on the original game in the best possible ways. They've basically taken everything that worked, polished it, and then added a decade worth of improvements. So I want to break down all the interesting parts for you so you know if this game is for you or not. And if you do find that helpful, drop a like on the video because it helps push this video in the algorithm to other people who haven't heard about the first game, let alone the second game. So Dragons Dogma 2 is still a single-player, open-world, narrative-driven action RPG. It's still about combat and adventuring, but the character creation, for example, has been changed dramatically because now all of the different features that you can change about your character are going to have an effect on the gameplay. Your height is going to affect your reach and how fast you can run, even your dexterity and max stamina, while your weight and stature will affect how much you can carry, how hard you hit, or even how far you can throw things. You can also throw barrels for environmental effects, and the water effects when you see this dam explode and all the water just rush into the troll that completely sweeps it off its feet and washes it away is actually incredible. So it's really nice attention to detail on the physics system being employed here. And even your own allies can be thrown into enemies where they can then grab onto them and deal damage to their weak points. Or if you grab onto a particular enemy, the AI companions will even catch you when you fall. And there's lots of synergies like this between your party members. But once you've actually made your character's then going to need to specialize into one of the 4 starting vocations. So firstly, you've got fighters, and these are your classic sword and shield wielding knight characters. They're going to be your party's tanks, and they're going to play a crucial role in keeping the rest of your party safe and allowing them to deal damage against these bigger boss targets, or even assist in holding down enemies while your weaker characters go to town on them. Secondly, we have rangers with bow and arrows. They're equipped with medium armor, and they rely on dodging and using elemental arrows to take down the harder foes. They also use close combat weapons as well, and they're able to do a bit of everything. Thirdly, the thief has dual wielding daggers, and he can output lots of damage extremely quickly by targeting weak spots before dodging out of combat safely from harm's way. And then finally, you have the Mage, one of the most powerful vocations in the game, with both heavy hitting damage spells and many crucial synergistic spells that buff all of your allies by enchanting their weapons, admitting light so your companions can see in those dark caves, and so on. But there are also advanced class options that you can unlock later. Each one's going to come with new unique mechanics, spells, and abilities, and it's possible to create a hybrid class where you can mix and match each skill and mechanic from different vocations together. And this was a big thing in Dragons Dogma 1, and it really allows you to make whatever you want from the class system, meaning you don't have to be tied into a specific role. Now, Capcom have already shown off some of the advanced classes. We already know about the Mystic Spearhand, finally, spear weapons. We've been waiting so long for them to add spears to the Elder Scrolls 6, but here we have the Spearhand, who uses spears at close range and magic abilities at long range to crowd control multiple enemies at once, fulfilling a very unique party need. And then you also have the Magic Archer, who has ranged attacks that are clearly much less precise than the Ranger counterpart because you can't aim at specific weak points, but they do massive area of effect damage and even have huge healing spells as well. Specifically, their Vocation ability allows them to drain their own health and unleash a massive area of effect spell on everything around them. Now, each character actually has 4 skill slots for spells and attacks, and you can buy and unlock these different abilities as you play. Each class also has a vocation action, and it's unique to each one of the classes. So far, we know most of the starter classes' unique abilities. The Thief, for example, has a sidestep in addition to being able to dodge. It kind of adds like a long dodge and gives him an extra ability to stay out of harm's way. They can also pickpocket and steal items as well though. Now, we saw that the Archer can zoom in on its target and hit weak points for extra critical damage. Each of the enemies you encounter will have a specific weakness or weak point, which you'll discover over time. The Warrior, on the other hand, can block enemies, and he has a skill that lets him taunt bosses and draw attention away from the weaker party members. As for the combat gameplay itself, they've amped it up massively compared to the first game. We still have light attacks, heavy attacks, and combo chains. There's jumping and dashing, but the animations have all been massively improved. Everything just looks super smooth and satisfying to watch. Also though, hits just look more impactful. Especially when lighter fighters get hit, they seem to get staggered, and I'm pretty sure it all ties into the size and weight of your character build. So again, those decisions you make in character creation are pretty important. And we can still take out enemies' knees to get them into the down state and then do mega damage, just wailing on their head. Some of the combat features can be used for environmental travel. So here, when we take out the Cyclops, it then becomes a bridge that our party can use to cross this cavern. Or even some of the Harpies, you can grab onto their legs and you can use them to like fly into higher areas or lower yourself down to the ground. So I'm hoping there's going to be some really unique, interesting secrets that you can unlock in weird ways like this. But if you've played Dragons Dogma 1, you'll know that it's still all about the synergy between classes and skills which you use to defeat the harder enemies. The Mages, for example, have area of effect healing abilities and enchantments that can be applied to your party's weapons. But while their spells are extremely powerful, able to one-hit kill some enemies, the stronger ones are going to take time to channel, and therefore the mages need to be protected during that channeling time. So that's when your other party members need to come in and defend them so they can get off those big spells, which are very crucial in certain encounters. For example, against a Chimera, where you can silence the goat's head and stop it using spells against you, which makes the encounter a lot more bearable. But now, let's talk about the trusty pawn system. These are your AI companions on this epic journey that you're about to embark on. So you obviously get your own character, but you also get to make your own pawn. You can customize their character. What most players seem to do is customize them into their own personal waifu, but you can make whatever you want. You can choose their vocation, or if they're a hybrid class, and whatever else your party might need. But then in addition to that, where it gets really interesting is that you have 2 other party slots where you can recruit another 2 pawns that other players have actually made. And they're going to join your party, so there's 4 of you all together. Now, the unique feature of this system is that the companions learn and gain knowledge based on your actions and also the quests or challenges that you've done so far. So my pawn, for example, might go away and help another player kill a griffin or some harpies, and maybe they find some hidden treasure in one of the cave locations. And then when we end up battling a griffin or a harpy, they might actually be pointing out certain weaknesses or spells we can use during combat that are super effective against that enemy type. So even if my warrior goes and fights with some mages, he might know that one certain spell is very effective, and therefore he'll tell me as a mage or some of the other mages in the party to use that spell because it's going to help make this encounter easier. And in the same way, he might crouch down in a corner in a certain cave and boost up my character to some secret hidden treasure that my guy had no idea about because he's not been here before. So all these different pawns kind of act as your tour guide throughout the game. And it's the reason why these companions actually feel useful in Dragons Dogma compared to pretty much any roleplay game I've played to date. And even if you're struggling on a specific quest, you can actually go to the pawn recruitment area and you can get a companion that has specifically done that quest you're on and one you're struggling with, or even a higher level one, to assist you in getting through it. It's kind of like going through Middle-earth with your own personal Gandalf tour guide. And obviously on the gameplay you've seen so far, you've seen this big open world. And the game's kind of made with these sort of linear areas into big open areas where you can just go wherever you want. But in the first game, there was a general area progression, and I don't know if it will be like that in the second game. What I do know, though, is that technology has come a long way in 10 years, and Dragons Dogma 2 doesn't have any loading screens. It's seamless. You can go between locations and do whatever you want without watching a loading screen. And from what we've seen so far, they've built on the original world, added a new kingdom and even a new race and lore into the game. I don't want to go into the story though, because I just don't want to spoil it. But honestly, if you're considering it, I would recommend still playing the first game. It's aged very well. But now let's dive into the different creatures and enemy interactions, because this game has bandits, griffins, chimeras, dragons, goblins, everything. And each of the enemies seem to actually work together to attack you. So if the enemy bandits have a tank, he'll go and engage you, while the bandit archer might try and shoot you from afar. They'll even try and flank you and hold you down. The AI isn't stupid. And of course, you've got the day-night mechanic in Dragons Dogma 2, so when the sun goes down, you'll encounter risen skeletons, zombies and ghosts. The nighttime in this game is not for the weak-willed player. And the darkness is hardcore. Like I said earlier, you won't be able to see 5 feet in front of you, and anything outside of the lantern light range or the spells is just pitch black darkness. You'll be able to hear things, you won't be able to see them until you walk up closer. It's specifically awesome when you're in a dark dungeon and a boss just jumps out of the darkness and you don't know where it is. But as you're venturing between towns, you're going to have to plan your routes with campsites in between major locations so your party can recover and wait until the next morning before carrying on in a safer environment. It's really nice to have a day and night cycle in a video game that actually matters and affects the gameplay. Your health only recovers so far, so it makes sense to actually sleep and rest for more than 5 hours and 300 hours of gameplay. One of the things I noticed in the demo that made the game feel even more alive though is that the enemies would actually attack each other and engage with each other. Like we see a griffin hunting its prey, and some creatures were even battling over food sources. This whole dynamic system makes the game world feel so alive, and apparently the main story is going to have some key choices with very different outcomes that affect the world around you and lead to extremely different playthroughs or even multiple playthroughs of the game that you might want to do. But next week, Capcom are actually revealing even more info on Dragons Dogma 2 as well as the official release date. So I'll link my next video right here if you guys want to watch it, and make sure you also subscribe if you want to stay up to date before launch, because this is one we'll be following closely.